It started with a laugh. Not just any laugh, his laugh. My brother Mark has this loud, unfiltered laugh that carries across a room. I was in the kitchen at my parents' house, pouring myself a drink, when I heard it from the living room. My wife, Emma, laughed back, softer, but in that way she only laughs when she's completely relaxed, or when she's flirting. I peeked around the corner. They were sitting too close. Not siblings-in-law who've known each other for years, close, knees almost touching, leaning in like the rest of the world didn't exist. Mark was telling some stupid story about his college days, and she was eating it up. I remember thinking, no. You're overreacting. They're just talking. But then I saw it. His hand, on her knee. Just a quick squeeze, but enough. And she didn't flinch. She smiled. That night, in the car on the way home, I tested the waters. You and Mark seem to be having fun, I said casually. She smiled. Yeah, he's always been funny. You should laugh more. It was meant as a joke, but it landed like a jab. I let it slide. For now. I didn't want to believe my own brother would cross that line, but something in my gut wouldn't shut up. So the next weekend, when Emma said she was running errands, and Mark texted me he was working late, I decided to do something I'd never done before, track them. I had a spare Apple AirTag from when I lost my bike last year. Slipped it into the lining of her tote bag while she was in the shower. Later that day, my phone pinged, she was at Mark's apartment. I drove there. Parked 2 streets over. Waited. At exactly 7:46 p.m., I saw them through his balcony window, standing in the kitchen, way too close, her hand on his chest. I didn't storm in. I didn't call. I just sat there in the dark, watching my wife and my brother laugh like they were in their own little world. And that's when it clicked, if I went in now, I'd just get lies, excuses, maybe tears. No. If I was going to deal with this, I was going to make it hurt, for both of them. That night I didn't sleep. I lay there next to Emma, staring at the ceiling, her slow breathing like background noise in a bad dream. I could smell his cologne on her. Not mine. His. In the morning, she was up early, humming in the kitchen. She poured me coffee like nothing had happened. I smiled, took it, and said, thanks. Inside, I was already building a plan. Step 1, proof. Not just one photo or one location ping, proof. The kind that couldn't be explained away. I bought a small voice recorder, the kind reporters use. Fits in a pocket, records for hours. The next time she went out, I slid it into her tote bag under her wallet. When she got back that night, she tossed the bag on the couch and went to take a shower. I grabbed it, transferred the audio to my laptop. 2 hours of muffled conversation, clinking glasses, and then, her laugh. Low, breathless. His voice saying, we shouldn't, followed by her whisper, we already did. It was like someone had poured boiling water into my veins. I replayed that part 5 times. That was all I needed to know. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to see how far they'd go if they thought I was oblivious. So I made my first play. I called Mark the next day and asked if he could help me with some financial planning. I told him I was thinking of moving some investments, maybe changing my will, and I wanted his advice. Mark's a sucker for money talk. Always has been. We set a meeting for next week, just him and me. I knew he'd see it as a chance to look smart, maybe even angle for some kind of cut if I hinted at it. Meanwhile, Emma thought I was spending more time with my brother, to reconnect. Perfect. The truth was, I was already thinking about how to use both of them against each other, and make them hand me the knife to do it. When you find out the 2 people you trusted most are betraying you, there's a primal urge to burn it all down in the moment, scream, smash, make them feel the pain you're feeling. But the thing about fire? It burns out fast. I didn't want fast. I wanted slow. Controlled. A burn so deep they'd never heal from it. That meant one thing, they had to trust me completely before I cut the rope. The week after I recorded them, I made an effort to be present. I texted Mark more often, sports scores, old family jokes, random memes. The kind of stuff brothers send when everything's normal. We grabbed lunch on Thursday at a burger place we used to go to in college. He seemed almost guilty at first, avoiding eye contact for the first 10 minutes. But guilt is a funny thing, once people think you don't know, they relax. By the time we finished eating, he was laughing again, patting my shoulder like old times. With Emma, I doubled down on being the attentive husband. Small things, making her coffee, running errands she hated, asking about her day and actually listening. I even suggested we should do more family nights with Mark, movie marathons, game nights, dinners at home. She hesitated at first, probably wondering if I suspected something, but then she agreed. Of course she did, it gave them more excuses to see each other. What neither of them realized was that every one of those nights was part of my setup. I'd place my phone, charging, in the corner, with the voice recorder app running. I'd leave the living room for a few minutes at a time, to get drinks, answer the door, check on something in the kitchen, and when I came back, they'd always be sitting just a little too close, voices a little too low. I caught whispers. Mark, we can't be obvious. Emma, he doesn't suspect anything. Mark, laughs, yeah, yet. Every time I heard something like that, it took everything in me not to let it show on my face. I just smiled, handed them their drinks, and kept playing the dumb, happy husband-brother role. The more comfortable they got, the sloppier they became. I started noticing they'd exchange glances when certain songs played on the TV. They'd help each other in the kitchen, brushing past a little too close. And every single time, I was there, making mental notes, filing it all away. Then, one night, Emma mentioned she'd been thinking about restructuring our finances. She'd read some article about how couples could protect their assets just in case something happens. She said it casually, like she was doing me a favor, but the second those words left her mouth, I knew, she was laying the groundwork for her own safety net. I agreed immediately. You're right. We should make sure everything's in order. I'll talk to Mark about it, you know he's good with this stuff. Her eyes lit up, but she tried to hide it. In that moment, I knew I had them both walking exactly where I wanted. If you want to take someone's legs out from under them, you don't swing for the knees, you pull the floor out slowly, so they don't notice they're falling until they hit the ground. That's exactly what I had in mind. After Emma mentioned restructuring our finances, I set the stage. The next time Mark and I met for drinks, I steered the conversation toward money. I told him I was thinking about creating a trust to protect the family assets and maybe consolidating accounts for better tax benefits. I made it sound like I was inviting him into some exclusive insider move. Mark, of course, perked right up. Money talk always made his ego swell. Man, that's smart. Especially with how the economy's going, he said, leaning back like he was already on the board of directors of my life. Over the next 2 weeks, I consulted with him and Emma together. We'd sit at the dining table with documents spread out, me explaining things in layman's terms, Mark nodding like an expert, Emma looking impressed that her husband and her lover were working side by side. They thought they were part of my inner circle. In reality, they were signing off on a structure that, in the event of a divorce, left Emma with next to nothing. Here's how. I had my lawyer draft an amendment to our existing marital agreement that transferred nearly all liquid assets into a trust in my name only. The trust was tied to a shell LLC I controlled, with clauses that allowed advisory oversight from a secondary party, Mark. On paper, it looked like a precautionary measure to protect the family wealth. In reality, it made me the sole owner of everything that mattered and gave Mark a phantom role that meant nothing. To them, it felt like we were all locking arms against the big, bad world. In truth, I was building a wall around myself, brick by brick, with them on the outside. When the day came to sign, I played it perfectly. I ordered takeout from Emma's favorite Thai place, opened a bottle of wine, spread the documents out casually. "Just sign here, initial there," I said, pointing with a pen. I even made a joke about how boring legal stuff was. They signed without reading every word. Emma kissed me on the cheek afterward, thanking me for being proactive. Mark clapped me on the back, saying, "We make a great team." I smiled. Inside, I was already picturing the look on their faces when they realized what they'd just done. The best part? They still thought I was clueless. They thought they were in control. And that's exactly why the trap was going to snap shut so hard. Once the papers were signed and the assets locked down, I could have gone straight for the kill. But that would have been too clean, too quick. I wanted them squirming first, restless, unsure, looking over their shoulders. The kind of pressure that makes people crack from the inside. I started with Mark. A few days after the signing, I called him out of the blue. Told him Emma had been acting weird lately, more distracted, more secretive, and asked if he'd noticed anything. I played it subtle, like I was just venting as a husband to a brother. Mark, of course, said he hadn't noticed anything, but his tone was just a shade too defensive. I knew that seed was planted. With Emma, I took the opposite approach. Over dinner one night, I casually mentioned that Mark had been really stressed at work and that he'd told me he needed to focus on his priorities. Then I shrugged and said, "He's probably just tired." Nothing more. I watched her face as she processed that, the faintest flicker of doubt in her eyes. Perfect. Then I started scheduling last-minute changes to our family nights. Sometimes I'd cancel at the last second, leaving them wondering if the other one bailed first. Other times, I'd invite Mark over but make sure Emma wasn't home yet. When she walked in later, I'd drop some harmless but suggestive comment, like, "Mark and I had a great talk earlier, interesting stuff." And then I'd change the subject. They were both too smart to confront each other directly, but I could see it working. The little touches between them became rarer. The glances shorter. The laughter forced. To make it worse, I sprinkled in tiny, accidental, slip-ups, leaving my phone open on the table with a text from an unknown number that just said, "Did she tell you yet?" Or pretending to hang up a call when Emma walked into the room, muttering, "Yeah, I'll handle it." One night, while we were watching a movie, Emma asked me, very casually, if I'd talked to Mark lately. I smiled and said, "Of course." "Why?" She shook her head. "No reason." But she didn't touch her wine for the rest of the night. With the tension building between them, I knew their perfect little fling was starting to rot from the inside. And just when they were at their most paranoid, I lined up the event that would finish them, my sister's wedding. Everyone important would be there. Family. Friends. People they couldn't hide from. It was the perfect stage. My sister's wedding was already set to be one of those big family events where everyone shows up, the kind of thing that gets talked about for years. The ceremony was in a rustic hall just outside the city, all exposed beams and fairy lights, with a reception planned for over 100 guests. For most people, that kind of day is about love and family. For me, it was about opportunity. I'd been to enough weddings to know one thing: no one forgets the speeches. The best man toast, the maid of honor's tearful story, the father of the bride's wisdom, it's all burned into people's minds. And when something goes wrong during a speech, that becomes legend. I decided my toast would be something no one in that room could ever forget. But first, I needed to make sure they were both in the perfect position, side by side, surrounded by family, unable to slip away without drawing attention. That meant helping with the seating arrangements. My sister was happy to let me handle the logistics for the head table, so I placed Emma and Mark exactly 2 seats apart. Just enough distance for people to see them both clearly, but close enough that every reaction would be caught. Next, I prepared my evidence. I didn't want just vague accusations, I wanted undeniable, impossible to refute proof. I spent hours editing a short, devastating video montage. A photo of Emma's car outside Mark's apartment, time-stamped. An audio clip of them whispering, "He doesn't suspect anything." A still from my living room camera of them kissing while I was out. And finally, the audio confession from that night with the recorder in her bag. I kept the whole thing under 2 minutes. Short enough to hold the room's attention, long enough to destroy their reputations. I loaded it onto a USB drive, labeled it innocuously as Family Slideshow _final, and gave it to the DJ as if it were just a sentimental montage for my speech. The morning of the wedding, Emma was unusually affectionate, holding my hand in the car, resting her head on my shoulder. I guess she thought my recent bonding with Mark meant I was blissfully ignorant. Mark was all smiles too, greeting me with a brotherly hug at the venue. It almost made me laugh. As the ceremony ended and the reception began, I kept everything light. Toasted with champagne, laughed at jokes, mingled with cousins. Emma and Mark were at ease. Good. They had no idea the floor was about to disappear beneath them. By the time the MC called for my toast, I could feel my pulse slow, the way it does right before you pull a trigger. The room fell quiet as I stood, microphone in hand, smiling out at the sea of faces. "This is a day about love," I began, looking right at my sister and her new husband. "And about family. But sometimes, family needs to be reminded of what those words mean." From the corner of my eye, I saw Emma shift in her chair. Mark looked confused. "And that," I said, "is why I put together something special for today." I gave the DJ the nod. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. The first image was harmless, shot of Emma, smiling in our kitchen, coffee mug in hand. A few people in the room made soft sounds. Emma even gave a shy smile, glancing at me like I'd just surprised her with something sweet. Then the second image appeared. A photo of her car parked outside Mark's apartment building at 10:43 p.m., date and time stamped. The room went still. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The third slide hit harder, a blurry but unmistakable still from my living room camera, Emma and Mark kissing, bodies pressed close, their hands in places that left no room for, "It's not what it looks like." A sharp intake of breath came from somewhere behind me. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Then came the audio clip. Their voices, low but clear. "Emma, we can't keep this up." "Mark, relax. He doesn't suspect anything." Gasps. A chair scraped against the floor. The last piece was the recorder audio from her tote bag, the sound of them together, punctuated by Mark's voice saying, "I've wanted this for so long." There was no mistaking what was happening. No wiggle room, no plausible deniability. The lights came back up. For a second, no one moved. You could have heard a fork drop. Then the noise erupted, whispers, shocked exclamations, someone muttering, "Oh my God." Emma was pale, frozen in her seat. Mark's face had gone red, his jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. Across the table, my sister looked like she was about to be sick. I took a slow sip of champagne, set the glass down, and said into the mic, "I'm sure you'll both have a lot to explain to the family later. But for now, let's raise a glass to my sister and her actual husband, the only loyal couple at this table." A few people laughed nervously. Most just stared at Emma and Mark like they were radioactive. Emma bolted first, heels clicking on the floor, disappearing toward the exit. Mark followed a few seconds later, not looking at anyone. The door closed behind them, and the room buzzed with the kind of scandal that would be retold at every family gathering for the next 20 years. I handed the mic back to the MC, smiled at my sister, and said, "Your turn for speeches." She shook her head, still wide-eyed, and whispered, "Holy shit." That night, I danced, I ate, I toasted my sister again. And every time I caught someone looking at me with that mix of pity and admiration, I thought, perfect. By the time I got home that night, my phone was blowing up. Missed calls from Emma, a few from Mark, even one from my mother telling me I'd caused a scene. I ignored them all and poured myself a double whiskey. For the first time in months, I felt calm. The next morning, the real damage started to show. Emma didn't come home. My guess was she stayed with a friend, not that it mattered. Word had already spread. By noon, 3 of her closest girlfriends had unfollowed her on Instagram. My aunt texted me, I always knew something was off with her. The family group chat was chaos, half the people defending me, the other half asking why I'd done it so publicly. Mark called 6 times that day. No voicemails, just relentless ringing. Eventually, I texted him one sentence, "Don't contact me again unless it's through a lawyer." 2 days later, I met with my attorney to start divorce proceedings. Thanks to the financial restructuring they'd both happily signed off on, Emma's share of the assets was next to nothing. She'd get whatever personal items she could pack in her car, and that was it. When her lawyer saw the paperwork, he told her fighting it would be a waste of time, she'd signed everything willingly. Mark didn't fare much better. His fiancée, yes, the man was engaged this whole time, showed up at my door to thank me for saving her from marrying a snake. She'd seen the wedding video after one of my cousins sent it to her. Within a week, she'd moved out of his place and posted a photo of herself in another city with the caption, "Fresh start." Family gatherings became interesting. My parents tried to pretend things were fine, but the tension was thick. My father, to his credit, pulled me aside one night and said, "You did what you had to do." He made his bed. Mark stopped showing up entirely. Emma tried to reach out once more, a long email about forgiveness and working through it, but I never replied. Financially, I was secure. Socially, they were pariahs. And best of all, I didn't have to lift another finger, the gossip machine did the rest for me. Every time I heard a second-hand story about how Mark couldn't get a date without someone bringing up the wedding, or how Emma had to switch jobs because co-workers found the video, I smiled. They'd thought they could betray me and walk away unscathed. Instead, they'd been sentenced to live in the shadow of that 2-minute video for the rest of their lives. It's been 8 months since my sister's wedding, 8 months since the video, the whispers, the fallout. Sometimes it feels like it happened yesterday, other times like it was a lifetime ago. Life now is quiet, and I've realized how much I value that. No more second-guessing late nights, no more pretending I don't see the signs. My evenings are mine again, I cook what I want, go where I want, answer to no one. The silence in the house isn't lonely anymore. It's peaceful. Emma moved 2 towns over. Last I heard, she's working at some boutique store and renting a small apartment. People still talk, though, apparently the wedding video made its way to a couple of her coworkers. She's kept her head down, which is probably the smartest thing she's ever done. Mark? I haven't seen him since that night. He tried once to clear the air through a mutual cousin, but I shut it down. I don't need closure from him. I got all the closure I needed the moment he stood there at the head table, watching his life implode in front of our entire family. I heard he's moved in with a buddy, bouncing between odd jobs, still single. Some people have asked me if I regret doing it so publicly. My answer is always the same: if you betray someone that deeply, you don't get to dictate how they react. They chose to gamble with my trust, they lost. I just made sure everyone saw the cards they were playing. Revenge doesn't fix the past. It doesn't heal the betrayal or make the pain vanish. But it does something almost as satisfying: it writes the ending on your terms. And in my case, I got to walk away with my dignity, my finances, and my freedom intact, while they're still living in the crater I left behind. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: patience is the sharpest weapon you can wield. Swing too early, and you miss. Wait long enough, and when you finally cut, it's clean and irreversible. And that's exactly how I wanted it.